And it was a big boxing scene where Nigel Ben's fighting. So, you know, I went there with, you know, some family, but was just kind of meeting them then. You know, when I sat down and had a look at everybody who was about, it was a really dark scene, there's all the smoke machines in there. And they went, do you think there's any real gangsters in here? They looked kind of, and I went, very possibly. Hi guys, my name's Stephen Gillen. For those of you who don't know me, I had my own long, unfortunate history in organised crime. There's going to be some more on me and my story in the link below, guys. Answering a lot of the wonderful people out there who's been enjoying the content and asking for deep dives on certain iconic films. And today we've got an absolute blinder. It's an all-time classic. Today I'm going to react to The Long Good Friday. This was the real top film back in the day. Bob Hoskins, very compelling. It's also what made his wife, of course he played Harold Shane, you know, the leader, gang boss in London. His wife, Victoria, was a young Helen Mirren, and this propelled her career. Excellent narrative.
How common is it to lose someone in that life?
Unfortunately, too common. As, you know, it comes with a life. I've lost so many people, some of them very dear, very close.
I did my national service with Colin. We did 6 months in a glass house together.
This, of course, was one of their friends, Harold's friend, who was killed in the swimming pool because the IRA and the main firm in London, they're fighting each other. Harold Shane at this point, he don't know why his friends are being killed and why he's being targeted. Of its time, this was an excellent portrayal and an excellent film. And I know many people, even Harold Shane, who he would have been modelled on.
Always been playing manoeuvres. Used to have to hump this blinking great wireless about.
Another thing I love about this film, The Long Good Friday, and Bob Hoskins' portrayal of Harold Shane was, it was right just like the crime figures of them day, modelled where the values and the morals of that day, just coming out of the, you know, we're talking about the era after like the 70s, coming into the 80s, around that time. So these guys would have been growing up in the 60s, was spot on to how these characters actually were in the day. Of course, it's different now.
Snows, blizzards, it was freezing the bollocks off the ponies. I got lost. In them days, you stayed lost till they nicked you for being AWOL.
You see, he just plays it lovely here because he's got the cheeky bit about himself. He's funny, but he's got all the heaviness of the portrayal too. It makes it very, very authentic. I think this was his best role ever for Bob Hoskins, certainly.
To keep it all incognito, they're going to collect the body in an ice cream van.
Well, there's a lot of dignity in that, isn't there? Going out like a raspberry ripple. All the way from Gallion's Reach, right the way down to Tilbury. He should be the greatest doctor in the world at one time, this.
This is really good as well, because what you're getting here is a real understanding of how the relationships, even between police and villains on the street, were in them days. And of course, this was just before, you know, you're talking about like the 80s, the Brinks-Mat robbery, you know, and the real explosion in all the building of the Docklands in London.
We can't have bombs going off, Harold. We can't have corpses. I had to stick my neck right out to keep this out of the forensic bloke's hands.
You come up with anything?
Nothing. I thought you were going to tell me.
Did you ever come across bombs, bomb threats or bomb squads during your time in that life?
I did, but when I was a kid in Belfast all the time, I see a lot of this stuff, unfortunately, over there. There'd be a lot of bombs going off, and sometimes, there'd be checkpoints and stuff like that, and they'd cordon places off because, they'd be setting bombs off and trying to make the place safe and all that. So it was martial law there. You have to remember this was guerrilla warfare on street corners.
Did you ever come close to any that went off?
Sometimes, I have people in the family that were in the vicinity of this stuff, really, really affected and harmed by this stuff as well.
I once caught the pox off some Indonesian bird here. It was just a bobby on the beat then.
Another great scene. A lot of people don't understand about the dynamics between police and villains, cops and robbers, and all these things. I mean, in that life, I always played by the rules. Those who know me, I certainly paid for it as well. I was released a Category A prisoner. But even still, back in the day, all the way through, and even today, there are some very, very serious names, always have been, always will be, in bed with the old Bill in different ways to keep their position and to protect themselves from destroying what they've built.
Oi! Which one's Errol's house?
Never heard of him, mate.
Razors. A little bit of respect here, I think.
And this is great. It's one of the most iconic things that I remember about this film. There's any ever problems? He says, razors, cut him. And that's just like it was in the old days, a little bit more, but it was a lot, same thing, but a lot more gentlemanly in them days, right? Different kind of values and the way they see the world and the way they done business, but just as violent.
Used to be a nice street, this. Decent families. No scum.
Do you think Harold was unnecessarily rude to the car mechanic, or do you think it was warranted?
In them days, you have to think this was 40 years ago, how it was. We've come a long way now, thankfully. It was what them days was like, unfortunately. So he played a very, very good depiction of a boss in them days. This is a really iconic scene here as well, probably one of the most in this film that spins the storyline, drives the narrative forward, where they're in the slaughterhouse, so Harold Shand, to find out who's attacking him, pulls all the faces from around London in, and we're going to find out who it is. Would this have really happened like that? It's a bit far-fetched, to be honest. Would certain faces and people, do they know each other around London? Did they in them days, would they? Absolutely. Would there have been a hierarchy in certain things? Absolutely. Would they have been called in? Absolutely. I mean, I know certain meets and other, where there's been some really serious words coming to violence, all the rest of it, where there's been, meets called with a lot of different figures to try and sort things out. So this stuff does happen. Not quite in this way.
And believe me, all of you, nobody goes home until I find out who done it and why.
Put the comments below. What do you think of the wardrobe in this? What do you think of the set design? I'm looking back. I was, even younger in them days. Those of you who was there and those of you who were not. But what do you think about the style of this film, this wonderful depiction of 1980s gangland?
Look, things have never been so good between South London and the East End. You bastard. You little bastard, of course he knows. All right.
I used to work with the South London guys all the time. My co-Ds with South London people from Bermondsey. It isn't really like that. They wouldn't be able to do that. The South London people are very heavy, just like the East London families, West London families, or North London families. So it wouldn't actually happen like this. In its day though, great entertainment, great script, lot of action, very current to the day. The war was really active in them days, I know, with the Republicans. Were they very heavy on what they was doing? Absolutely. I have to tell you, the ones that I knew who was really respected, they were soldiers. They seen themselves as soldiers, freedom fighters. They don't see themselves as gangsters. So in this kind of way, that's how that dynamic would be.
How much is that?
60 grand. It's in the case. You better count it.
Even the money, look at the money nowadays. 60 grand in the case nowadays, it's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money. And he tucks this up here, Harold. He comes in, he thinks what he'll do, he'll just nip it in the bud. Of course, he's been attacked, he's not having it. He thinks everyone's going to attack him now. You know, of course, this is a big mistake because he don't actually know who's attacking him here. And this is the start of, you know, an escalation of a lot of stuff in this film. Now, this is probably, I think, one of the all-time classic scenes certainly the one maybe, in any British gangster classic that I know. And it's this bit here with Harold Shand when he's outside the Savoy, he thinks he's being picked up, and actually he's being kidnapped, and it's his death. Now, I have to just say, the whole premise is that the IRA, the Irish contingent, you know, and London gangland are fighting, and who would win, who would come out on top. I'm not going to say in any way, I'll leave that to the audience. One thing is I know it will be very bloody, and you have to just let your imagination take hold of what that would really look like. A young Pierce Brosnan, another up-and-coming actor, of course, going to be James Bond. A lot of big actors cut their teeth and done their foundational work in this film, The Long Good Friday. Love that scene, I have to say. It's totally iconic. Won't be repeated in that way. Where he realises, Harold Shand realises it's over for him, he's caught, he's going to be taken to his death. And in that moment, he shows everything, and everything goes through his mind. Excellent film.
Do you think the plot of this film is actually a historic story that was researched correctly?
I think Harold Shand is based certainly on people, you know, that I even know to this day, so I know that, you know, he would have been modelled on. That was very close. In the early 70s, you know, even in the prisons, the IRA, stuff like that, when the war was just starting, they wasn't treated that well. But as we go on into later years, you know, all the top, you know, IRA boys I was away with in prison, or for instance, or all the other real known faces of the day, because we was all together, they got on well. I mean, we had to get on, right? So things, you know, happen in this world, just like they do in the world of spies, right? So you have to work out for yourself just where that starts and where that ends. What do I think about The Long Good Friday? I'll give this one a 2. Got to say, for the younger guys out there, remember that this classic is 40 years old. It came out in 1980, but it has some great values of the day, translating that into what organised crime really was like in them days. I react to a lot more modern films, which you'll get, like Legend, Layer Cake, they're all on there, right? But you have to appreciate this timeless classic, The Long Good Friday, for its narrative, for its collection of characters. And you have to think about the politics of the day. It's a timeless classic, I have to say, an all-time British great, there's no doubt. I'd have to give it a really strong 8.5 for that. For authenticity of the day, you have to give it a good 8.5 as well. There's some stuff in there, we've moved on, but as a depiction of 40 years ago, gangland and some of the top faces around them days and how they was as a mindset, as an actions, very authentic. Hope you liked that one, guys. A lot of people have been asking for that, and I know why. What a classic. I really love revisiting it. Thanks for watching the channel. A lot more amazing stuff coming. If you want to know any more about me, Stephen Gillen, or anything else that we're doing, or anything that you want me to react to next, or any questions that you want answered, put in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe. Do the bell so you're notified, and have a look underneath, guys. You know, if you want to know anything else about me, my story. Look after yourself, as always. Take care, and be lucky.
A lot of people seem to drink whiskey throughout this film. Is that known to be a gangster's drink?
I think that's everyone's drink. Don't get me wrong, I haven't drunk in 13 years, but if that's what rocks your boat, fill your boots.
Did people used to drink it a lot back in the day in your life?
I should think that you should drink a lot of everything back in the day in my life.
Is that the gangster's drink?
It's my drink.